King's Magic Drum. Ephraim Duke was an ancient king of Calabar. He was a peaceful man and did not like war. He had a wonderful drum, the property of which, when it was beaten, was always to provide plenty of good food and drink. So, whenever any country declared war against him, he used to call all his enemies together and beat his drum. Then, to the surprise of everyone, instead of fighting, the people found tables spread with all sorts of dishes, fish, fufu, palm oil chops, soup and cooked yams, and plenty of palm wine for everybody. In this way, Ephraim Duke kept all the country quiet and sent his enemies away with full stomachs and in a happy and contented frame of mind. There was only one drawback to possessing the drum, and that was if the owner of the drum walked over any stick on the road or stepped over a fallen tree, all the food would immediately go bad. Moreover, 300 Igbo men would appear with sticks and whips and beat the owner of the drum and all the invited guests very severely. Every few months, the king used to issue invitations to all his subjects to come to a big feast. Even the wild animals were invited, for in those days there was no trouble, as they were friendly with man, and when they were at the feast, they did not kill one another. All the people and the animals as well were envious of the king's drum and wanted to possess it, but the king would not part with it. One morning, Ikuwa Edom, the king's wife, took her little daughter down to the spring to wash her, as she was covered with yaws, which are bad sores all over the body. The daughters happened to be up a palm tree, just over the spring, cutting nuts for his midday meal, and while he was cutting, one of the nuts fell to the ground, just in front of the child. The little girl, seeing the good food, cried for it, and the mother, not knowing any better, picked up the palm nut and gave it to her daughter. Directly the daughter saw this, he climbed down the tree and asked the woman where his palm nut was. She replied that she had given it to her child to eat. Then the daughters, who very much wanted the king's drum, thought he would make plenty palaver over this and forced the king to give him the drum. So he said to the mother of the child,
"I'm a poor man, and I climbed the tree to get food for myself and my family. Then you took my palm nut and gave it to your child. I shall tell the matter to the king and see what he has to say when he hears that his wife has stolen my food. This, as everyone knows, is a very serious crime according to native custom."
Ikuwa Edom then said to the daughters, "I saw your palm nut lying on the ground, and thinking it had fallen from the tree, I gave it to my little girl to eat, but I did not steal it. My husband, the king, is a rich man, and if you have any complaint to make against me or my child, I will take you before him." So she took the daughters to her husband and told him what had taken place. The king then asked the daughters what he would accept as compensation for the loss of his palm nut. And the daughters immediately pointed to the king's drum and said that it was the only thing he wanted. In order to get rid of the daughters, the king said,
"Very well, take the drum."
But he never told the daughters about the bad things that would happen to him if he stepped over a fallen tree or walked over a stick on the road. The daughters was very glad at this and carried the drum home in triumph to his wife and said,
"I am now a rich man and shall do no more work. Whenever I want food, all I have to do is to beat this drum, and food and plenty of drink will immediately be brought to me."
His wife and children were very pleased when they heard this and asked the daughters to get food at once, as they were all hungry. This the daughters was only too pleased to do, as he wished to show off his newly acquired wealth. and was also rather hungry himself. So he beat the drum in the same way as he had seen the king do when he wanted something to eat, and immediately plenty of food appeared. So they all sat down and made a great feast. The tortoise did this for 3 days, and everything went well. All his children got fat and had as much as they could possibly eat. He was therefore very proud of his drum, and in order to display his riches, he sent invitations to the king and all the people and animals to come to a feast. When the people received their invitations, they laughed as they knew the tortoise was very poor. So very few attended the feast. But the king, knowing about the drum, came, and when the tortoise beat the drum, the food was brought as usual in great profusion, and all the people sat down and enjoyed their meal very much. They were much astonished that the poor tortoise should be able to entertain so many people, and told all their friends what fine dishes had been placed before them, and that they had never had a better dinner. The people who had not gone to the dinner were very sorry when they heard this, as a good feast at somebody else's expense is not provided every day. After the feast, all the people looked upon the tortoise as one of the richest men in the kingdom, and he was very much respected in consequence. No one except the king could understand how the poor tortoise could suddenly entertain so lavishly, but they all made up their minds that if the tortoise ever gave another feast, they would not refuse again. When the tortoise had been in possession of the drum for a few weeks, he became lazy and did no work, but went about the country boasting of his riches. One day he started home carrying his drum. He did not notice a stick in the path. He walked over the stick, and of course the juju was broken at once. But he did not know this, as nothing happened at the time, and eventually he arrived at his house very tired. He threw the drum into a corner and went to sleep. When he woke up in the morning, the tortoise began to feel hungry, and as his wife and children were calling out for food, he beat the drum. But instead of food being brought, the house was filled with eggplemen, who beat the tortoise, his wife, and children badly. At this, the tortoise was very angry and said to himself,
I asked everyone to a feast, but only a few came, and they had plenty to eat and drink. Now, when I want food for myself and my family, the